We are back with another Sega Genesis Hacks and Translations episode. In parts 1 and 2, I went over the likes of Streets of Rage, Street Fighter 2, Mortal Kombat, Sonic, and a number of RPGs that are now in English. Since then, I have played even more cool hacks and translations that I think many of you might be interested in. No long-winded opening for this one, so let's jump right in and see what I've got for you. Let's start off with a very simple hack that takes a good game and makes it a tad bit easier for those of you that might be struggling with it. Shadow Dancer: The Secret of Shinobi was released in 1990, a side-scrolling action game very loosely based on the System 16 arcade original. You get the ninja, the dog, a few similar enemies and locations, but it's pretty much a different looking and playing title in most other aspects. But the one area it was exactly the same was that they were both a one-hit wonder. Take a single blow and you were dead. This made them both rather challenging, particularly when played at the higher difficulties. If you found that to be off-putting, this hack here might be for you. This gives you 3 hit points so you can take a bit of damage before you lose a life. This makes the last leg of the game infinitely more doable and a great trainer for the retail release. It doesn't modify anything else, so you get the same great experience, just a touch easier for those of you that despise games that punish you with a single hit. Now, this isn't going to be for you vets that know Shadow Dancer inside and out, but if you are coming in new or have been turned off in the past, give this a try and see how it treats you. It's also a great way to get your kids playing it. In 1994, the Falcom classic Lord Monarch received a port to the Japanese Mega Drive. This colorful strategy game has you expanding your kingdom, taking down bad guys, and gathering resources to make it all happen. Tax your people too much and they stop working. Tax too little and you may run out of money. You have an overworld map that must be conquered within a certain time limit. Basically, you enter into a new area, conquer the enemies, and then move on. You can guide your workers to do certain tasks, but you can enter the fray yourself. But be careful though, outside your castle you do not gather taxes and you can be killed, which will end the game. You must learn when to launch a personal offensive and when to expand your kingdom. Should you take on too much, it can be game over. This is a colorful, fun game with a very solid presentation. It's easy to understand the story, the gameplay guides you well so you understand everything, and there is a save system in place to track your progress. The English translation is excellent, and this one comes highly recommended. Golden Axe came out extremely early in the life of the Genesis, and just about everyone and their granddad has played it. Many times in fact. So many times you likely don't revisit this one very often these days. It's one of those classics that you love to death, but familiarity has taken its toll on your desire to keep playing it. Fortunately, I have just a hack for you. This is called Golden Axe Plus, and it has a number of changes to reinvigorate your love of this classic brawler. You can choose whatever magic you want for any of the characters. There's a number of difficulty options that make it much harder, and you can add credits to help you cope with all that. This really does change the feel of everything you remember about this one. If it was too easy for you before, you can really change that now, and the ability to swap around the magic adds a new feature that changes everything. I was always a Gilius Thunderhead guy for the core gameplay, but I much preferred the magic options of the other characters. Now I can have both, and that really does add some renewed interest for those of us that have played this since day one. This one is for the fans and newbies alike. NHL 94 is fondly remembered as one of the best sports titles on the Genesis, right up there with the likes of NBA Jam, Mutant League Football, and World Series Baseball. But like all retro sports, it's trapped in that era with old players and a lack of expansion teams. Well, that is until now. NHL 94 2022 edition updates the teams and rosters for the modern season. That's not all. There has also been gameplay enhancements, graphical upgrades, and a new rating system that affects everything on the ice. If you are a hockey fan and wanted your favorite modern players with this classic gameplay, this is a dream come true. I'd love to see something similar done for the better Joe Montana Genesis games. Sometimes that old stuff still plays great and just needs a modern touch to bring you back into the fold. Highly recommend it, not just for the upgrades, but being a great game in the first place. It's one of Electronic Arts' best. I covered Mortal Kombat Arcade Edition a while back. It was a massive hack that improved and added a ton of things to make this as close to the arcade as this version could possibly get. Whether it was a change in color, added sound effects, or gameplay tweaks, it's one of the better projects that improved the retail release in a major way. With most of the major changes done and out of the way, this extended hack aims to go after the little details now. Portraits, sprite details, colors, and animation see further refinements to bring it even closer to an arcade-like experience. I love that people feel so compelled to make this the best it can be. That's some serious dedication when you work to make portraits and colors on a nearly 30-year-old arcade translation more accurate. Now, if someone could just do something about those thin life bars, I think this would be just about perfect.
Scorpion wins. Fatality.
There is no secret that I do not like CHAKAN the Forever Man. The dark visuals, the garbage gem soundtrack, and that slow, monotonous gameplay just made me want to turn it off after 10 minutes every single time I tried. When I found the hack for Ultimate CHAKAN, it took some serious motivation to force myself to play it. And I'm really glad that I did, because this is a game changer. So many of the irritations from the retail release have been addressed here. You jump higher so you can negotiate the levels better. You do more damage so the enemies are less irritating. You start with potions to help you understand the way they work. The timer is no longer an issue. Bosses are more reasonable. This is so much more accessible now, and a great way to approach this once mess of an experience, so you can actually have some fun with it. Die-hard CHAKAN fans may scoff, but for those of us that found the original a bore fest, I can't recommend it enough. Hell, this almost makes me want to go find something similar for Green Dog. If you are a fan of Decap Attack for the Sega Genesis, it might interest you to know that that was a reskin of a Japanese game called Magical Hat's Turbo Flying Adventure. It's essentially the same game in terms of mechanics, but the visual, story, and characters were overhauled to fit a more Western-focused release. That probably means that many of you haven't played the original, especially since it had a fair bit of Japanese text in it. Well, now you can play this fully translated, and it's a really nice game. The bright, colorful graphics, the unique gameplay mechanics, and the weirdly attractive soundtrack all come together quite well. If you Master System vets are getting Psycho Fox vibes, that's because it was also made by Vic Tokai, who did a few games in this same style. It really is worth checking out, not just as a curiosity for Decap Attack fans, but because it's a pretty solid title in its own right. For you Sailor Moon fans, there was a Japanese beat-em-up released for the Mega Drive called Pretty Soldier Sailor Moon, and it now has an English translation. Many of the voice clips have subtitles, and even the region lock has been removed. I'm not a fan of the source material, so the action here doesn't mean a lot to me. The mechanics are simple, it's short, it doesn't sound very good, and it's only one player. Fortunately, you do have 5 characters to choose from, and the visuals aren't bad at all. I think fans will appreciate this, but unless you have some other reason to play it, this might not be for everyone. Still, it's interesting to see this and finally be able to understand what's going on, even if it's not a top-notch experience. I had never played Scio Blade before because it's a point-and-click adventure with a deep story that was loaded with Japanese text. Now, thanks to a full English translation, I can finally play it and understand what the heck is happening. And it's a good thing too, because this is a monster of a story that takes quite a bit of dedication to see the end. Your goal is to uncover what happened to a deep space ship that was lost during its mission outside of our solar system. Think of this as kinda like Snatcher Light, and it'll give you an idea of what you're facing. I'm only a few hours in myself, but for those of you that enjoy story and character development, this one might be for you. Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 was a port that Genesis received in mid-1996, a massive undertaking considering the size and scope of the arcade original. That port was solid, but was ultimately missing a ton of things. And that's where Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 comes in, a 48 megabit hack that adds a ton of new fighters, stages, moves, sound effects, and even puts Shiva back in. but such simple words cannot do this hack any real justice. This is basically a mix of all 3 Genesis games, containing a huge amount of content that pretty much gives you everything you need in a 16-bit Mortal Kombat experience. This has so much content, I've actually taken to letting it run in attract mode while I'm doing chores or creating content here. If you are a fan of the Genesis originals, I highly recommend giving this a chance. It has more to see and do than you can possibly imagine.
Fight!
Our next game is neither a hack or a translation, but I still wanted to spotlight it. Final Fight Ultimate is a labor of love by a group of developers who are aiming to bring Capcom's arcade classic home to the Sega Genesis. That's right, no Sega CD is needed here. This is built on the power of the Genesis alone, and holy hell is the product looking like a dream come true. This footage was taken straight from the test build of the game, and I highly advise you stay glued to this project because it's looking like a straight up winner. All 3 fighters, all the stages, all the bosses, it's everything you ever wanted in a home port of this for the Genesis. There will be a link in the description so you can keep up with it, and be sure to throw whatever support you can behind it to make sure it gets finished. I can't tell you how much it does my heart good to see the Genesis getting this kind of support all these years later. As someone who is extremely familiar with its library, seeing and playing anything new is always an exciting endeavor. I'm not very deep into some of these games, but I've really enjoyed learning what they are, and in the case of the Japanese games with English translations, playing them really for the very first time. In the description of this video, you'll find links to every game I showed you here, and hopefully, a few of them will meet with your approval. If you visit the forums at places like Sega Extreme, be sure to stop by and give the developers some feedback, or just say thank you for all their hard work. They keep the hobby alive with great games to discover and rediscover in many cases. Keep the projects coming, guys. Your work is greatly appreciated. I'm Sega Lord X. Thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you next time.